Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on when you're listening or watching this show. But really good to have you all join Prasen and me on what is a big day for all cricket lovers, especially Indian cricket lovers, and it's a big day of sport all around here in the UK. And Prasen has already had a big day. We were just speaking on off air. Prasen, first of all, before you tell us how the day started for you, how are you?
I'm very well, Bharat. Thanks. Really looking forward to today's game. I think the mother of all rivalries, like everyone likes to put it. So yeah, very very excited, and you can clearly see my support for West Indies didn't last too long. So I think I think I need to swap it for the blue that you're wearing and strut with that, for the whole of this day and hopefully the week to come if we put up a good performance. But how are
Yeah,
you doing?
I'm very well. I thought I'd dig this one out, remind us of the last time we won the World Cup, and we're well overdue. We all know that. But your day has started in a very energetic way, and I'm very jealous. Tell our listeners and viewers what you've been up to this morning, because it is quite incredible.
Oh well, I think times are obviously changing, and with all that's coming into workouts and fitness and all that, just happened to somehow last through a whole 10K marathon today morning. So pretty exciting times. I hope that energy stays throughout the day because I think it's a very big day in terms of sport, not just India, Pakistan. We've got the Grand Prix, US Grand Prix. We've got United, Liverpool. We've got everything happening. So it's going to be a very very long day, and it's going to be a massive shift at work as well. So
I
looking forward to that.
I can imagine it's going to be a little bit busy at work, but it's a good way of using that nervous energy because, like you say, these games don't come out around a lot. It's only in the ICC tournaments that we get to play these games. But what's the build up like in India?
Oh, it's mad. I mean, I can tell you that ever since the schedule was announced, everyone's talking just about the India Pakistan game. I think, in some sense, people would be okay if we lose the World Cup, but not okay if we lose to Pakistan. It's that big here. And I think it obviously speaks of the hype that goes in when these two teams play each other because it's not often. It's very rare that you see India Pakistan playing, and obviously the political tensions that come along with it. So it's a massive game for both teams. I mean, you'll see all these players saying in their pre-match and post-match conferences that you need to treat it as a game. But I'm pretty sure that they know that they can't lose, and that's why it makes the game that much more interesting. That I mean, players will give more than the 100%, their 150, 200, whatever it is, to win this game at all costs. So it's treated as a festival. I mean, Diwali probably came a little early this time with India Pakistan. So really looking forward to the fireworks before the actual Diwali happens in the first week of November.
Well, I hope there are fireworks and they're in saffron, white, and green somehow. But I have to share that we have a well-being call in our team every Friday just to end the week. And at the end of the call, we ask everybody, "What are your plans for the weekend?" And I said, there's this small matter of a cricket game coming up. I didn't have to say any more because when I said India Pakistan, everybody knew how huge this game is. So it transcends these two countries. I think anybody that has any sort of an interest in cricket or knows a little bit about politics knows how huge this game is. And like you say, it's always been the case that win or lose the World Cup, this is one you have to win. And it seems our boys in the history of ICT tournaments have lived up to our expectations. And we've won every single match in the ICC tournament that we played Pakistan in. How are you looking into how confident are you as we go into this game? Because we've had a couple of warm up games. We've had the IPL where a couple of players at the end of it were starting to come into form. What are your thoughts on how we approach as we approach this game in terms of the boys and keeping that record going?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty confident. I think the players have actually done well, like you said. Towards the end of the IPL and especially in the warm-up games, seeing KL Rahul bat the way he does, I think there's no better sight really than KL Rahul batting at his best. And of course, Rohit and Virat are in form. Sky found form in the last game as well. So I think it's a matter of how we're going to play Hardik Pandya. I think he's obviously a key member in that side. So I'd say only Hardik Pandya and Bhuvneshwar Kumar at this point in time are looking a little bit off color to me. Otherwise, the whole 11 is sort of looking pretty decent. And I'm sure Pakistan will be under a lot more pressure, although I'm not sure if there are a lot of expectations on them because they lose every time. And I'm not sure what the situation is in Pakistan, but I'm pretty sure that they're okay to expect a loss, whereas that's not the case here in India. You're expecting the team to win, and with the side that's currently in the Indian team, everyone knows the how big the IPL is, and the IPL obviously is big, has become so big because of the fact that the Indian players are taking part. The Indian players constitute a majority of the side, so I think the team's looking fairly good. I am really hoping that we put up a good performance. Overall, I feel we're a lot better balanced than Pakistan because their middle order is a little bit of
Mm.
is in a little bit of a mess right now. So I think if we manage to get rid of the top order early and sort of get into their middle order quicker than what they'd expect, then I think we have a really good chance of wrapping up the game quickly, taking inspiration from the England side.
Absolutely, and yeah, that was well. They were playing West Indies, so let's not do the comparison there, and we'll talk about that later because later, and that was quite embarrassing if you're a West Indies fan, but expected considering if you saw the squad. But one of the things that Shashwat asked just as we were ending the previous show, and I said we're going to keep this till the next week, which is today, is your selection for this first match because this is the match that will set up our tournament. Let's face it. I mean, if we
Yeah.
win this, the momentum will carry on for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So, how do you start this very very big game? What's your lineup?
I think mine's pretty standard. I think it's what we'd expected before the IPL even began actually. So I'm going to open with Rahul and Rohit. I'm going to have Kohli at three, Sky at four. I really want the team to play Hardik at five because I feel he needs the deliveries to get settled in. Because obviously Rishabh Pant and Jadeja have some form behind them in terms of having done well in the IPL, and obviously they're suited to that finisher's role. But we saw Hardik struggle even in the warm up, so I'm not entirely sure if he'd be able to do well. But the way that he took on the bowlers in the 2017 Champions Trophy, it all seemed lost. It seemed like the match would end really quickly, but then Hardik came and turned it on against the spinners. So if we get that version of Hardik Pandya, I think it'll be ideal if that comes against Pakistan. And for that to happen, I feel he needs to face a lot more deliveries and get settled in, get a feel of what it is, how the pitch behaves. So I think Hardik at five, Jadeja at six, Pant at six, and Jadeja at seven for me. The bowlers, I'm going to go with Bumrah, Shami, and Varun Chakravarti. And for the other bowler, I'm definitely probably going to look towards Ashwin for starters because I feel he brings a lot of variations to the table. He looked slightly off color during the IPL, but I think in the warm ups, especially in the second game against Australia, he looked his part. And if the pitches are to be believed as to how they'll play out, I feel we have enough bowling. But that said, I'm not sure if only Bumrah and Shami can sort of take up that bowling responsibility in the pace department. But obviously, Ashwin starts with the new ball as well. So if we're looking for some variations in that aspect, Ashwin can come in. So I feel we should probably look to start with three spinners. Hopefully, I'm actually going to take a punt here, and I'm going to say Hardik Pandya might bowl against Pakistan because they wouldn't have planned for him, and that this would be the perfect opportunity to sort of try him out there. There are a lot of conflicting reports that Hardik has been bowling in the nets, but he's not going to bowl in the match and things like that. So, I mean, if rumors are to be believed, Hardik has a chance of bowling in the match, but I'm not sure. Obviously, he won't be his entire quota of overs, but if he can even bowl one or two overs, that'll be great for the balance. But overall, I think this is the 11 I'm going to start with.
Well, there's two out of the 11 that I would just ask you to qu- uh, qualify as to why you would pick them. And the first one is Ashwin ahead of this is goes on to Hardik as well because if Hardik doesn't bowl, or let's say he's bowling at 1 or 2 overs and he's not bowled
Yeah.
since I don't know when, firstly is that a good idea? And
I'm
is his batting in that sort of a form that he deserves to be in the team for his batting alone?
The thing about Hardik is, he certainly is a match winner. And let's face it, Shardul Thakur probably won't give you that sort of batting that Pandya will. Because, I mean, despite all the form that we've seen with the bat, it's happened only in the test format. And in the test format, you don't have fields spread out where, you have like a deep mid wicket, you have a long on. Instead, in the test format, you have fielders all inside. I mean, not even they don't even have a circle. It's probably close to the batsman and closer to the batsman than the boundary. So all the form we've seen from Shardul Thakur has been in the test format. He hasn't played that sort of a knock for CSK yet in the IPL. So I wouldn't be jumping the gun and say that Shardul Thakur can probably bat better than Hardik. I mean, Hardik would have probably been in all of our 11s if not for the IPL form that he's in currently. And I'm sure Hardik knows that he's a match winner on any given day. So, I mean, the whole point of why I want Hardik in that 11 is simply because if he turns up, there's no better player in that 11 to finish the game, at least for India. So if Hardik is given the backing from the team that we are going, I mean, he's not doing it intentionally. So obviously there is something going wrong. But if he's given that backing, if he's told that we're going to back you, this is a big game, we want you to perform. He's someone who loves to perform on the big stage. We've seen in all of his interviews, he keeps saying time and time again that I want to be that guy who shows to the crowd that he can do something. So that's why I want to have Hardik in the team purely based on character and the fact that he can win matches. Unfortunately, he's not good. Good. I mean, in terms of form, but I don't feel Shardul sort of matches up to whatever Hardik can do. Maybe he offers those 2 or 3 extra overs, but he hasn't been sensational in some sense to replace Hardik in the 11 for me.
Yeah, it's simply because that you were yourself saying, could we go into this game with two pace bowlers in Shami and Bumrah? If Hardik doesn't bowl, and we'll see, I suppose, in a few hours whether he will and what sort of bowling he can bring in, because he can't just bowl in the nets then come and bowl a couple of overs in a big game. That's a lot of pressure on the young man. And that's why I was trying to make a case, or being devil's advocate in the thinking Thakur needs to start, because it's this Dubai pitch one that's going to just be suitable for the spinners, and you've gone for Chakravarti. Nobody will question that. Jadeja, nobody questions that. But Ashwin?
Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously it's probably going to be a shootout between Shardul and Ashwin in some sense if you want that extra pacer in the side, depending on the conditions, of course. But I think Ashwin is a lot more handy in conditions where he actually bowls off spin and doesn't try and bowl like 50 different balls in like the 6 deliveries he bowls every over. So, but if the last warm up game is indications of what he can do with the ball, I think it's fantastic because I mean, the way that he can fox batsmen with his variations and, not just in terms of like bowling leg spin, off spin, carom ball and all that, but with the pace, with the drift that he gets, I think he's a great addition to the side. So in my opinion, I don't see Hardik sitting out. Instead, I think it's going to be a shootout between Shardul Thakur and Ashwin for that one spot. Because if they're looking for a seamer, they're going to go the Shardul Thakur way. Or if they're looking for spinners and they think the pitch is going to, I mean, it'll all, at the end of the day, it'll depend on how the pitch is playing out and how they think the pitch will play out. So if it's going to be a track that's going to assist the spinners, then they're probably going to look towards Ashwin. Otherwise, it's going to be Shardul Thakur. So I think the only spot in contention for me is that one bowler spot, that rather the bowling all-rounder spot where you're looking for either Shardul or Ashwin based on the conditions.
And again, it might seem to a lot of people that I'm picking on Hardik's place and trying to get you to even justify even more as to why he should be in the team. But I'm just making the case that others might, that if you're going to play Hardik for his batting, would you still take him ahead of Ishan Kishan?
I'd say I would because I mean the thing about Ishan Kishan is he's someone who's naturally bred as an opener or someone who plays in that top order, someone who plays in the top four. And obviously, there's no spot over there. You can't play him in the top four because you've got Rohit, you've got Rahul, you've got Kohli. And Kishan himself said that Kohli has picked him as a backup opener. So, despite how he's done in the IPL, or rather the last part of the IPL, and how he did in the warm-ups, I feel Kishan will warm the benches. See, the thing about why I want Hardik in the 11 is you know for sure that he's going to play in the World Cup. And if you don't play him in a crunch game like this and bring him in sometime later, hoping that he'd do well, I think that will be a dent on his confidence and the team as well. Because if Ishan Kishan indeed does well, then you can't drop him to get Pandya back in the side, thinking that he will do well. So instead, I feel they should back Pandya. They should tell him that, listen, you are out of form. You haven't been scoring the runs, but at the same time, we believe in you as a match winner. You have done it several times for us in the past, and we're gonna play you in that number five position. You're gonna get the deliveries to play out. You're gonna get some time in the middle. Get yourself back into form because he's gonna be a very important player. We're expecting to go all the way till the final at least, and hopefully win it. But if you play those four matches with the best of your capacity, and hopefully in that time as well, if you can sort of get into a bowling stride as well, then nothing like it. So Hardik Pandya is going to get back into the side as a match winner, and you're sorted with all your issues. So I don't think they'll back Ishan Kishan right now, and despite the form he's in, instead they'll back Hardik and tell him that we're giving you the opportunity, make the most of it, and bring your best potential on the field.
Well, like you say, on his day he's a match winner, and nobody can argue with that. And hopefully today's the day he comes back. And you never know, surprise the opposition with a couple of overs that he's more than capable of taking wickets and not just coming in to cover a couple of ball on his day. So hopefully we'll see that back. How important is, I mean, considering the IPL and how crucial the power play when you're batting is in getting that momentum? How much pressure is it on KL, and how good was it to have the IPL experience just before this tournament now? Because we need, by all accounts, everybody's saying that you need that big start.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And I think the worst part about KL Rahul, in my opinion, having followed him for so many years, is that his natural game was curbed by the fact that the Punjab Kings didn't have a middle order. He had to camouflage, or rather compensate for the lack of that middle order. And but in the last game, they had nothing to lose. They needed to put up a big score. I mean, obviously chase down a big score, and KL Rahul was at his absolute best. And even in the warm up game, he absolutely put the bowlers, away really easily, and that's what KL Rahul is known to do best. And if he can provide that start, and along with Rohit Sharma, of course, we know that Rohit Sharma is a mix of taking time and also being aggressive. So I think they sort of perfectly complement each other. And if we get that version of KL Rahul for this tournament, I think it's certainly going to be something to marvel at, because obviously Kohli opening the batting didn't work for RCB this season as much as we'd probably like. And if Kohli can get back to his number three, sort of whenever the time needs, he can come and take his time. And at the other end, if KL Rahul or Rohit Sharma can, play the big shots, and then, get set the innings for the death overs, I think nothing like it. So if we see the version of KL Rahul that we saw in the last game of the IPL and in the warm up games, then I think that's going to be very, very crucial to how we go about our batting in the whole tournament.
And the other thing that's already becoming a factor is the toss in the second games, because of the dew factor that's playing a bigger and bigger role. How important is the toss, and will it be crucial? Because everybody's saying you bat second.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be crucial. I think it certainly will have a say, but I don't think it'll have an impact on winning or losing. It'll probably have an impact on how close the matches get, because I mean, we all expected West Indies to put up some semblance of a fight, given that the strength in the squad. But eventually, it came down to a very hapless batting performance. So I think toss is something that isn't in any team's control. The captains keep saying it again and again that we wouldn't have, we don't mind doing whatever the other team has asked us to do. So teams always come prepared with an A and B, and your best 11 are on the field. So I don't think toss has too much of a say. But that said, our Indian players obviously have a lot of experience coming in from the IPL. So I think they'll be used to bowling with the dew, bowling without the dew, batting when the dew is there, batting under lights, and different things like that. So I think overall we're well set in terms of the team, and in terms of the 11. It's just about going out there and making sure that we stick to the plans and deliver the best that we can.
Let's talk about the opposition now. We can't ignore them. They're used to playing in Dubai. It's pretty much a home ground for them, as we know, for the reasons we don't need to go into here. I think they've been unbeaten in the last 11 T20s, although their preparations for this tournament have been upset with a couple of tours being cancelled. Is it all about Babar Azam with this team and that top order? And if you can get him out early, it used to be like when India, I don't know, with a couple of players that back in the day. I mean, it's been a while since we depended on one player, that if he goes, then the confidence goes. But is it about one player in this case for Pakistan?
Yeah, I mean, before that, I'm not sure if you can hear the festivities going on over here.
I'll
Quite a
say,
few. quite a few fans here. It's already started, in Bangalore. People are very excited. I know a lot of people actually. I mean, in the marathon today, people are even talking about the India-Pakistan game and just running on the road. So that's what it is. But yeah, I think even for Pakistan, that festivities will probably end when Babar Azam gets out. But that said, I think they have Mohammad Rizwan, who's also in great form. He's someone who can do well. Fakar Zaman the other day played a really good knock in the warm up game. So, but these guys aren't exactly as consistent as they'd want to be. They've also got the war horses in Hafiz and Shoaib Malik in that middle order. So I think the whole idea is if we get Babar Azam out early, that would put pressure on the Pakistan batsmen. That would mean someone else needs to step up. But I'm not entirely sure if they have the quality in that lineup. That can take on the responsibility that Babar Azam would. So getting him out early would be really crucial. I think, like you pointed out, they haven't lost a single game in UAE when Babar Azam's been a part of it, and that's what social media does to you. People try and find different ways in which India can lose, Pakistan can lose, stats and whatnot. So that's what it does, and that's why I think it'll be key for India to get Babar Azam out early because he opens the batting as well. So if we get him out early, that means that Pakistan are dented that much earlier in terms of their confidence with the bat. So getting him out early will be very crucial, and I think Bumrah will certainly, or Bumrah or Shami will pose quite a challenge on these surfaces.
And in terms of the rest of the Pakistan squad, I mean, you mentioned it earlier on that they are reliant on the top order, top two or three to get most of the runs. And if you get into the middle order, they're in trouble. If you get into the middle order early, any concerns around the bowling,
The Pakistan bowling.
the Pakistan bowling?
Oh, they're a really good bowling unit. I think they have a lot of pace in that department. I think Shaheen Shah Afridi, someone who's been very very clinical in the way he goes about his bowling. He's fast. He can extract a lot of bounce. He's troubled the best of batsmen, and they've got the likes of Hassan Ali. They've got Haris Rauf. But the thing about Pakistan is more often than not they tend to pitch the ball up, and they bowl length. And they don't really have too many variations in their bowling. So I think that's something that might be found out throughout the tournament. You can have all the pace in the world, but if you're not consistent and if you're not like varying your lengths and you don't have the slow ball, you don't have changes of pace, it's going to be hard. Even in terms of the spin department, I think getting Imad Wasim away early will be crucial because he tends to drift the ball into the batsman. That's something that's been Rohit Sharma's Achilles heel for a very long time. The ball coming in, so I think they've got the bowlers, but again the thing about the Pakistan side is they don't have consistent players. They don't have match winners in their side apart from Babar Azam. To some extent, I mean, they have the players who can perform, but are they match winners is a question that Pakistan will need to find out. And I think there's no better curtain raiser for both the sides to figure out their strengths in the tournament than play each other in what's going to be a game that they can't afford to lose. Quite simply put, so they have the bowlers, but I think we have better batsmen. We have better equipped batsmen. We have batsmen who are in form. So in terms of the matchups, again, I think we're certainly ahead. I think I'd like to say we're probably 70-30. And if form is anything to go by, I think we have a great chance of picking up an early win.
You mentioned the matchups, but this is one of the rare instances in any sort of sport where the players don't play against each other unless it's like we said at the start, ICC tournament. So they haven't got that familiarity whether they play in the Big Bash, IPL, or whatever tournament, because you see that same player and you can sort of figure out this is going to be unusual for both teams. Is that going to be any sort of a factor? That there's that
Yeah,
unknown.
it's all going to be a mystery. I mean, that's the best part about India Pakistan. The positive side of India and Pakistan not playing is it's all going to be a mystery. So that's why Varun Chakravarti is being hyped up so much that
Yeah.
he's probably going to run through that Pakistan lineup because they've never played him before. So the other players we have played them in the past World Cups in the Champions Trophy and things like that. So not everyone is entirely new. I think they all know each other's strengths. I mean, in the day and age of technology and video coming in and being used in analysis, I think everyone knows each and every person or players strategy and what they tend to do a lot. So I think that's exactly why I agree that Varun Chakravarti is probably the mystery or rather the X factor for us, given that they haven't played him before. And if he can run through the opposition the way that he did in the IPL, I think it's going to be fantastic to watch. And yeah, hopefully he puts up a good show.
Well, there are four other teams in this group, so we've got to mention them. And New Zealand, one of those teams that everybody loves, but and takes lightly, but they're always there or thereabouts. Although not so much in the T20 World Cup, but they're a team that you need to take seriously. And Afghanistan, obviously, they've had a few issues, a lot of problems lately. We all know, we don't need to get into that. So we don't know what sort of frame of mind they come in. But prior to all that trouble, they were coming into this tournament as a potential semi-finalist. They were that talented. And then we've got the two qualifiers in Scotland and the surprise being Namibia. How do you see the rest of the group?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the Indian team, sorry, the Indian group, I think I think we have a very good chance of topping the table because again, New Zealand were run very close by Australia and lost that warm up game even. So in the second warm up game, they managed to find some form. Batsmen managed to find some form, but even then, they weren't entirely convincing. They have the players, but even they don't have one guy they can depend on. They have the guys who can put up 30s, 40s, but stitching it together is something that's missing in that New Zealand side. So I think facing off against them will be probably, obviously it'll be a tough prospect, but I'd say that we have the team to beat them. And in terms of Afghanistan, I feel the players in the Afghanistan team tend to move very quickly from in terms of what they want to do. We've seen the guys like Rahmanullah Gurbaz, Hashmatullah Shahidi. We've seen Mohammad Shahzad. All of them want to take on the bowlers, and that's not something that works effectively in T20 cricket. Sometimes you need to take your time and settle down. And if we can get rid of that top order quickly as well, I think we have a great chance. In terms of their bowling, they've got some really good bowlers. They've got Mujib, obviously Rashid Khan, Mohammad Nabi. Bowled those 4 overs and he barely gave away a run in that warm-up game. So I think overall they have a fairly better bowling unit than a batting side. But in terms of matchups, we certainly have the upper hand over all three teams in our group. In the other group, it seemed like it was a group of death until I think West Indies sort of. I mean, I don't even know if I certainly think that they are probably booked an entire movie theater or something to watch the latest movie that came out in the UAE. I mean, the way that they crumbled, it just seemed like they were looking to find the fielders and hit the ball to the fielders, and they just didn't seem interested to play the World Cup. I mean, they won it once, and so why win it again? Sort
But
of a philosophy.
I mean, you started with that match, but they did not look like reigning champions at all. It's
Yeah.
an aging team that's not being refreshed. And as soon as you look at the squad and the ages, and you think this team is going to struggle, and they showed that yesterday. But I did not expect that collapse. I was looking forward to the game, and I thought, this might be a test for England, because let's face it, they've lost three crucial players coming into this tournament in Archer, Stokes, and Curran. And there was some questions before here about how big a loss these would be, especially Archer. But the way the West Indies crumbled, it was a no contest really.
Yeah, it was a no contest, and that's the thing about the West Indies side. They either implode or they explode. There is no middle ground for the West Indies team, and that's probably what's going to hurt them most in this tournament. In fact, during the warm ups as well, they barely managed to get to a score which was challenging. Most of the batsmen were batting at like about a 50-60 strike rate. People were saying it's just a warm up game and things like that, but I think the West Indies team for a long time has been like that. They haven't found batsmen who can turn up the pace. And I mean, apart from I think Kyron Pollard, who's obviously been like a standard performer, even Andre Russell's blown hot and cold for them. He hasn't performed as to expectations. And the problem with the West Indies team, I think, is they don't have that one bowler who's really fearsome and who can turn matches on their head. That they've got like different bowlers. They've got the Obed McCoy. They've got Hayden Walsh. They've got like a lot of bowlers, Sheldon Cottrell, but all these guys have performed, but you won't be scared of them. You aren't going to play them out or something like that. So I think that's the biggest problem in the West Indies team is they've looked to go back to their old guards, but what they've done in that process is, even the old guards don't want to lose the place in the side. So they'll take time, they'll look to settle in, and then they get out, and that puts the team in a compromising position. So I feel, in my opinion, this is going to be the way that they're going to play throughout the T20 World Cup. Maybe you'll see one match where they score like 220, but the bowlers get hit for equally that or even more than that, and they lose the game there. So West Indies are looking. I'm not too sure of their progression in the tournament, honestly.
And let's not forget, a lot of these players decided to give up Test cricket to concentrate on the white ball cricket, especially T20 around the world in the different franchise leagues. This isn't going to help their prices when it comes to auctions in the future, is it?
Yeah, no, I mean, the auctions are going to happen right after the T20 World Cup. I mean, not right after, maybe a month after it. And I mean, why they call it retirement is probably because they've done so well in the T20 format, but they aren't staying true to what they've done best. I think someone like Gale, if he takes like 20 balls to score 9-10 runs, and then gets out when he tries to up the ante, simply doesn't work. And I think West Indies and obviously Punjab Kings started off, and they've done him no good by putting him one down at number 3, because that's just not where he belongs. He belongs at the top of the order, and that's where he is best. So I think someone from West Indies needs to take that responsibility in the top 4. Obviously, Evan Lewis has that talent. He can really turn things on, and I mean, but it's just not about Evan Lewis. Someone else needs to do it in that side. If not for Evan Lewis, and right now I don't see anyone doing it but Kyle Pollard, and obviously he can't do it every single time. So West Indies have a lot of problems in their side, and they need to iron it out quickly before they face South Africa, Australia, and I mean, obviously in their quest to make that semi-final spot, which I don't think they're going to get anyway.
No, I'll be very, very, very surprised if they get anywhere near challenging for a semi-final spot. But the other team that was on the other side, England, a lot of people's second favourites. Here, everybody's making India the favourites. I don't know if that's some sort of mind games, whatever, but all the comms here and all the pundits are saying it's India looks the team to beat. What did you make? I know it's only West Indies, and like we said, it was no contest. But how do you think England will get? The talk here is the final. It should be an India-England final. Do you agree?
Yeah, 100%. We even have a small competition going on in our workplace where we predict the man of the match and the winner of every game, and obviously we've also predicted the points table, how it will finally look, and the semi-finalists and the final. And I think about 28% of the total people playing have actually predicted an India-England final, and for no small reason, because England have probably the best players going around apart from India. That's why most of them are playing in the IPL. They pretty much you'd see that the England team bat until like 9 and 10, and that's not a luxury that most other teams have. That most of the bowlers in the top order can bowl as well. Batsmen can bowl as well. So that's again a very, very fluidic aspect that Morgan can work with. But if the adjudicators start pulling off scams like they did yesterday by giving Moeen Ali the man of the match for hitting those 3 extra runs, and didn't give Adil Rashid the man of the
Yeah, I
match,
thought he
then
should have had.
yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know what happened there. It's
They've
not even
probably
like Adil
they've
Rashid
probably got a league of their own.
What is that?
They've probably got a league of their own to predict.
I was literally saying the same thing at work, because I mean, I kid you not. So I was actually traveling yesterday, and so I put it up to my colleague, and I was like, listen, if England are batting first, you pick England Josh Butler for me. If England are bowling first, you pick England Adil Rashid for me. And he picks 4 wickets, and that's like even a wicket maiden in there. And it's not even like he picked the tail enders. He got Pollard and Russell out, 2 men who could have potentially taken them to a really good score.
Oh
And
man.
but he didn't hit 3 runs, so yeah, fair enough. Moeen Ali got the man of the match. So.
Oh man, yeah, that was a surprise as to how Moeen Ali got that one, because 4 wickets in any sort of format, especially T20, it's something although it
Yeah.
was West Indies. But prior to that, we had another encounter between two powerhouses, but not in T20 cricket. I thought South Africa were in with a shout with a couple of overs to go, but I don't think there's too much for worry in terms of for India. Again, when you look at the South African team, when you look at the Australian team, obviously they've got issues. Warner's carried on his form from the IPL.
Yeah.
What did you make of that
Yeah.
game?
I think it was a very weird start to the T20 World Cup, very honestly speaking, because you'd expect a high scoring but close encounter between two sides like Australia and South Africa. I think the West Indies England game was an aberration, and we can even sort of sort of speak of it in a light that it didn't even happen. But Australia South Africa happened, and the fact that South Africa managed to take it that deep into the game, I think, was pretty commendable. But the South African batsmen, I think, will need to take more responsibility because getting to that score certainly isn't acceptable. And it's not even like they have players who aren't established. They've got the likes of Temba Bavuma, Quinton de Kock, Rassie van der Dussen. Yesterday, Aidan Markram obviously played a very special knock. If not for him, they probably wouldn't have even got to that 100 mark. So they have a very, very good bowling attack, with Nokia, Rabada, Shamsi. Obviously, they've got some quality bowlers in there, but they'll need to figure out a way to score runs because, again, the same case with the Afghanistan side as well. They've got the bowlers, but if the batsmen don't score runs, then they're really not in with a shout. And again, speaking about Australia, I think Australia and England are two very, very good sides in terms of depth of players in the 11. But I am not sure how they managed to drag it that far, given that they have the Maxwells, the Stoynises, the Mitchell Marsh, and all of those guys. They should have probably finished off in a canter in maybe 14, 15 overs. But again, these players aren't exactly in form, except for Glenn Maxwell. Again, Stoinis was injured in the second part of IPL. Finch obviously didn't play the IPL. He's coming back from knee surgery. Mitchell Stark and Pat Cummins didn't feature in the second half of the IPL. So they've got a lot of players who are just coming into the system again, coming into that T20 atmosphere. And obviously, the bigger challenge for them is in terms of the Ashes that's coming up. So I'm not entirely sure if that Australian side is going to go too far as well. But I've put them down as one of the semi-finalists in my list, apart from India and New Zealand as well. So I'm hoping that if all things go right, then I can get a few points under my belt as well.
Well, I was going to end this show on that one. We know who the two finalists we predicted. I agree with you on that one. But who your semi-finalists will be? But you've told us, and the one that stood out for me is New Zealand. You think New Zealand
Yeah,
will
I
get
don't, I
there?
don't think I don't think Pakistan and Afghanistan have a better side than New Zealand. I feel New Zealand are a better balance than both of these teams. And of course, I mean, playing against India would probably be hard, but I feel they have good enough players to beat Bangladesh and Pakistan and Afghanistan. So that's why I picked India and New Zealand from our group, and I've picked Australia and England from the other group to make the semis. And so yeah, that's like 8 important points up for grabs. So I'm just hoping against hope that these. I mean, India of course will hopefully make it, but the other teams is what I'm hoping for.
Well, it's what we're all hoping for, that India get there after losing in the final the tournament before. Semi-finals last time, we didn't have too much of a track record prior to that, but this seems to be, I don't know, should we say it could be our year? It just feels like everything's set up. We've got this team, we've got all of the bases covered. And it's the final tournament for our coach and skipper. And it starts today, and it doesn't start any bigger than against Pakistan. You win that, and the momentum will take you into the semi-finals, I'm sure. Prasen, I know you're really busy today because of the game that's about to start as well. I think it's the Namibia. No, is it? Who's playing first? I should know this, but they'll be starting in a couple of hours, the other team in our group. But thank you for joining us after a very tough start in the morning running 10K. And it's been really good. I'm a little bit nervous, but confident in terms of going into this game. So we'll see what pans out. But thank you again, and we'll catch up, I'm sure, next weekend sometime to review what's happened in the first week.
Yep, thanks a lot, Bharat. Always lovely to chat with you. And hopefully, if you have one more of that jersey, please send it my way because I have only the recent one.
No problem.
I mean, absolutely a throwback jersey, this one, and it'll be great for the collection. So, thanks a lot. And hopefully, we start off with a positive note and we win. Thanks
Yes.
again.
Take care, my friend. Bye bye.
You too. Bye.